Hello, 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 my loves. You know, we've talked a lot about business. We've talked a lot about professional. We've talked a lot about things that we do in our career on this podcast. You know, we haven't really talked about the life shit. How do we deal with things? How do we put things together? How do we put boundaries up? How do we protect our own energy? And as an introvert, I know our energy is probably the first thing that gets spent with any situation because it is so rapidly leaving us, because we have to do more energy to deal with social events, to deal with more people, to deal with systems. It's just one of those things. You know, I figured we need help. And in this day and age, when you say you need help, you go ahead and you get a therapist. Well, I got a licensed marriage and family therapist from Pasadena, but he's not just that. He actually helps other therapists build their businesses online. And I'm like, okay, can you talk to us about boundaries, about energy protection, about giving the audience some tools? So maybe you might not need to go see the therapist this week because you got a tool from it. But hey, at least we got to start. And I'm always going to be someone who says therapy is a good thing to have in your back pocket. So with that, I'm going to welcome Nick. Hi, Nick. How are you doing today?
I'm doing terrific and better now that I'm here. Thanks for letting me come on your podcast.
I am so glad that you're here. So, like I said, you're a licensed marriage and family therapist. And when we were talking, you totally get the whole boundary things. You've worked with kids, you've worked with adults. How important are boundaries? What is this magical word actually mean?
Oh, I'm so glad that you asked that. And they're so important. And it's one of those things that I love to work on with people. And I think that when we think of it in an oversimplified way, we think of boundaries as being hard limits that we set with people, which is scary and honestly not their best application. Like a super rigid boundary is rarely the one that we want to use. I like to think of boundaries in an interpersonal sense of being how we say yes to people. So if I'm telling somebody what's not okay, that's one part of it. But unless I really need them out of my life, if I'm also telling them what is okay, then that's me telling them how I can show up into the relationship with a smile on my face, which is just really a generous gift that you can give to them and to yourself.
Okay, I really like that. And we're going to go into this a little bit more because every time I hear boundaries, it's like, no is a complete sentence. It is okay to say no. There's these ways to say no. And it's always about the no. And you just said, no, boundaries are sometimes about the yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
that's just mind blowing because you're the first person I've actually heard say boundaries can be a yes.
Well, and I think a lot of the content that we have where no is a complete sentence, which is all really valid and really important, is geared towards really predatory or sort of pathological pushing on boundaries. If you have somebody that's really abusing you or victimizing you, then no is a complete sentence. And you really need those rigid boundaries that you can set and say, no, this doesn't work for me. But then I think that there's so much of our life is lived in that sort of gray space where some things in a relationship are okay and some things are not okay. And so a lot of us really struggle with the people that we like and we do want to keep in our lives or that matter to us or their family. We struggle to give them boundaries that are something more nuanced than just an all the way yes, which is really, really, really dangerous, or an all the way no, which I think is, again, can also push people away from us or limit us in our relationships.
And as you're saying that, I just had this thought, and it's this stereotypical, the mother-in-law.
Oh, yeah.
You have to be good to them, but at the same time, you want to go like, no.
Right. That's a great one. You can't say, I mean, you can. I rarely does the situation, especially in a family gathering, call for you to just say, no, damn it. No, leave me alone. None of this bullshit. Like maybe, but how many situations has any of you had with your mother-in-law where that would not be an appropriate answer? And maybe not the one that you want to give.
It's that, you see it in movies, you see it in these shows all the time where they all also they go into their own little dream world and they're fantasizing about the beating them up, smacking them with the cast iron pan, throwing them out, and then snap back to reality and go, oh, I don't think we'll do that right now.
Right, exactly. It's not on the menu, though it might feel good. But also in those instances when we have those in real life, because who hasn't fantasized about, that level of exacting violence and revenge? In those instances, usually we've let things go so far beyond a tolerable place that the only thing that we can think of in our mind is that I have to do something extreme to fight or to flee or to do anything like that. Whereas if we set a healthy boundary earlier in the process, before we get to a place where we're filled with resentment and anger, we can have maybe a lovely relationship. Maybe there's a world for us to be, pleasant or friends with our mother-in-law. We just don't yet know how it's done.
Okay, I really like something that you just said then. I like I said, I like to pick things out.
Please.
How you said the distance, the length of time that you take from setting the original boundary to when you like feel like having to put, I don't think many people realize how big a factor that is. Bless
Yes.
you. But that is such a huge thing. And introverts especially, they have this tendency, for a lot of them that I work with, that they like to people please.
Yes.
They don't want the conflict. They want the easiest solution. And that normally is just saying, okay, whatever, I'll deal with it, get on with it. Yes, fine. And they get to this point where they do have that resentment. How can we help people go from that whole people pleasing, resisting conflict? Because I don't think a no or a yes is really conflict. It's just a conflict in our head.
Right. Most time.
Which is, you know, like instead of having that long drawn out, which creates that resentment and that anger and that,
right.
And that meltdown.
Well, I think it's important to switch roles in your head. And here's how I'll say it. If you're in a relationship with somebody, you want them to be their real self. You don't want them to feel like they have to hide something of themselves from you. You don't want them to be dishonest with you. I know that when you walk into a room with somebody, you're hoping to connect with that real person and to have an honest relationship that is based on them liking you and you liking them and you all being able to commune together. So in those moments where we're people pleasing, we're actually really kind of concealing a part of ourselves from other people that might not be really helpful to us or to them. We're kind of casting ourselves in a role that we're then doomed to play for the rest of the relationship. Whereas if we act generously, and I really do believe it's generous to do this with other people, to be our authentic selves, to risk having a little bit of friction, to risk having a little bit of an uncomfortable conversation, then what that does is it opens the door for us to show up authentically for the entire rest of the relationship. And if you've ever had a person where, you know, you hung out with them for a year and then they said, oh, by the way, I never really liked this thing about you. Or one day you say, pass the salt, and your partner says, I don't know what the fuck is the matter with you. Why are you always this way? Those are those moments where someone has concealed their real self from you. And so I really, truly believe that it's one of the kindest things we can do to allow other people to see the real us.
So I like this. We're flipping the perspective, and flipping the perspective is actually also a neurolinguistics technique where we look at things from different angles because it gives us a fuller picture. And how would you feel, audience, if you were the person having this done too? And that I think is what Nick's trying to get across here is like, if you're the one people pleasing, you're the one saying yes to everything, and then all of a sudden you're going to snap and go, I can't do this anymore. What if you were the other person?
Yeah.
How would that make you handle that? And so what is a really good, healthy way for someone to, if they're just like, no, I'm not really interested in doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And this is going to drive me crazy, but I'm going to say yes because it's quicker. And I know for me in my past, and this is just me being vulnerable and being honest, because I am an introvert and I am a people pleaser. Well, no, I'm a recovering people pleaser. In my head, I'd be like, well, this would take me 5 minutes to do. And that's just not worth the aggravation of saying no.
Okay.
Because I would rationalize it.
Right.
And I think a lot of people do that. They rationalize their activity.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you say is a great tool to give someone that would be able to say, you can set your boundary down now instead of flipping over, instead of doing what's said, so that way you don't have that drawn out journey to resentment?
I love that. And I actually think you're kind of on a middle step, right? I think that reflects your work that you've done. I think most of us who people please start from a place of, well, I can't say no to that, or they'll be so upset if I say no to that, or where things don't feel like an option. And so one of the first things that we have to realize, painful though it can be, is that everything we do is an option. Everything we do is a choice. There are some choices that are easier than others, and some are all bad choices, and some of them have huge consequences. But the truth is, everything that we do is a choice, right? And so when you understand that, yeah, then you might say, yep, this is unhealthy and I choose it. Yep, this is bad for me. I'm going to pay for this in the long run, but I choose it. The same way that I often choose junk food, like, yep, I'm going to feel this later, but I choose it, right? I think that's an okay place. And then once we get to a place where we really feel that sense of agency, and we know that we don't have to do anything, but sometimes we're making non-optimal choices, then we might be able to zoom back even further and say, what's it going to be like for me in a week if I do this? Is this same person going to come knocking on my door next week, asking me to do the same thing? Is this going to be a thing where suddenly our entire relationship is built around the idea that they think I like going water skiing because I've consented to doing it a second time and I haven't told them that I don't like it at all? I mean, I think we can really, and just be kind to ourselves, and you can still choose it. You can always choose the non-optimal choice. It's really okay.
I like that. I like asking yourself, do I want to be in this loop where I'm doing it over and over again? And that also gives you another choice. You know what? I'll help you out this time, but I'm not going to be able to do it in the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that way, when they come back to you, you can say, like I told you last time, I was able to help you out that once.
Yeah,
it's something I can keep doing.
And most people that love you or like you and or respect you, if you say I can do it this time, but I can't do it the next time, most of them are not going to ask another time. I mean, that's right. The other piece to remember is that by setting that's a really gentle way to set a boundary. I'm going to choose it this time and I won't choose it next time. And even though we prepare for the worst situation, most people are really going to respect that. People generally have one of two responses to really good boundaries. The first one is that they fuck off, which is actually great. That's the second best outcome that there can be, is that you set a boundary and somebody says, well, I don't want to be friends with somebody who has a boundary. That doesn't work for me, and they leave. But the other one is that a lot of times they just find a way to make it work. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly you're so much more comfortable because you're in a relationship where your needs are being met and your boundaries aren't being pushed all the time. And they're in a better relationship because they get to actually know and be with you.
Right. And this is something that people have to remember as well. Relationships are not one-sided.
So true.
And you have to have that back and forth, that give and take, that to and from. And that goes down to boundaries and respect and listening. And you are perfectly within your own right and your own capability to set your own boundaries and say, hey, this is what I need.
Yeah.
This is where I need to be. And I think so many people forget that because it's a very demanding society out there. And some people are a little bit more, I'm trying to think of the word. They're a little extra when they ask for it.
Sure.
And you feel like it's less capable of doing that.
Sure.
So we've talked about protecting boundaries. We've talked about getting that middle ground. We've talked about softening the boundaries, and mainly about respecting yourself as far as giving them that this isn't about you saying no. This is about you wanting to establish a more impactful relationship.
Yeah. It's giving the person the gift of getting to be in a relationship with you instead of with fake you that pleases people all the time.
Right. So what would you say to people who maybe are already in those situations, whether it be at work or with the dreaded mother-in-law, where they have gone so far? Because it's a lot easier to stop it at the beginning.
Right. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, God, it's incredibly easy for you to just make that decision. Mm-hmm. It may not be fun decision time, but it's a lot easier than trying to make that decision 6 months in, a year in. Yeah. How would you help someone like flip that switch?
Well, so I have two things to offer them. The first one is that Carl Rogers said, and I repeat this all the time because I think it's brilliant. He said something along the lines of, the relationship that's been ruptured and repaired is stronger than the relationship that never faced any adversity to begin with. And it's the truth. And I bet, audience, if you look back in your life, you can think of times in your life when you have had a relationship where there was a fight or a disagreement or a falling out. And in those moments when you were able to come back together and you were able to fix it and sort of meet on common ground, ultimately, I would bet that relationship was much stronger. I've certainly seen it over and over again. I see it as a therapist. There are times where I might upset my clients, and if we're able to talk about it and get those terms straight, and I can learn and reflect back what they're experiencing, that ends up being a stronger therapeutic relationship. So the first thing I would say is that actually you have so much less to fear than you think you do, because if you're able to bring it back together, you're actually going to gain from it. You're not just going to like return to the status quo. You'll get something way, way better out of it, right? And then the second piece that I would say, if I can remember, this might have to be a piece that you edit out of the middle of it. So the first thing is that the relationship that's repaired, let's see. I don't know. That's the first. I have to think of what the second one is. It totally left my mind. I'm unaccustomed to blanking.
That's okay. You know what? And I think that's another boundary that we have to learn to accept, because sometimes we think that if we don't have the answer right on the spot, that we're in the wrong. and we're not.
Right.
It's just, you're allowed that mental moment where it disappears.
Yeah.
And I see so many people that do just what you just did then, but instead of being like, hey, let's come back to it, they go, oh my gosh, I'm a terrible person. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm horrible. What the hell?
Right. Yeah. It's really easy to forget our own humanness, isn't it?
Oh yeah. It's like, for some reason we have this thought process that we're all supposed to be superhuman or cyborgs, or like, hey, you have a computer in your hand now. Why isn't one in your brain?
Right. Well, and I think that's when we're, one of the things about people pleasing that makes it so effective, but also so poisonous to us, is that we're really lopping off a side of ourselves, a really human side of ourselves. And we're just showing up as the perfect maitre d' or butler that makes people feel good all the time, but doesn't ever have a slip of the tongue or lose their train of thought, or doesn't ever miss a bill, or, fuck up or smell bad, or any of the things that we do, right? When we're pleasing people, we're always hiding that human part of ourselves, and that human part of ourselves is what really makes relationships meaningful.
Okay, and that is just so true. And I'm actually glad that you forgot the second part, because that gave us this opportunity to talk about this. I think that's karma, like going, okay, we're going to have a little hiccup here so we can really dig into something that most people don't talk about.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Most people edit out.
Yeah, but hey, no, we're running with it, because I think it was a beautiful example. And if you've got someone who does this for a living, I mean, not only does this for a living, but teaches other people how to grow their business, and they're going, hey, this happens. Don't you think that you should give yourself the space that it could happen to you?
Oh yeah. And people are so cool about it. That's the thing, is I tell you, especially in group situations, and I mean, people are cool about it all the time, but in the times that we think people would never be cool about it, if you're at a networking event and there's 50 people you haven't met before, bringing an ounce of your own humanity into the thing puts everyone at ease, because the truth is not one of them is immune to it. Not one of them is perfect. And honestly, they probably wouldn't be very likable if they were, but people love, because everybody's there feeling that kind of nervousness. Everybody's feeling imperfect. And if you're able to say, I gave a talk a year ago. No, geez, pre-pandemic, it was 3 years ago. And I started out by saying, I am nervous and sweaty, both of which were true. But I thought better to announce it. And maybe there are some other nervous, sweaty people in the room with me who can feel me, than to just have them observe it on their own anyway.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I agree with you. And this is a beautiful thing and a lot of people, for me, because I do a lot of video work, I'm always doing different videos and I'm always on there. So a few months ago, I actually took a whole bunch of my outtakes where I completely got tongue-tied, and I'm there going, okay, making all these funny noises, and I literally posted it. And I'm like, okay, this is what I do.
Yeah. That's amazing. Did you get a good response to it? Did people?
Oh God, yeah. Everyone's like, wow. But that's the thing, we're not perfect. We are human. And it doesn't matter if you're introvert or extrovert. Introvert have some other tendencies they tend to lean into, like the people pleasing, like the conflict avoidance,
yes,
like the keeping quiet and calm and behind the scenes in the background, which does make us more prone to the people pleasing, because we don't want to have that little spat at the beginning. We just want to get it over with and done with and move on through our lives.
Oh yeah.
But we're human, and I think you've done a beautiful job of bringing that back to us, that we have to embrace our own humanity. And I think people will respect you more for being human. I found that me posting that video, a lot of people came out of the woodwork saying, oh, wow, if you can do this, I can do this.
Good. Oh, I sure as hell hope so. Well,
and it's like, that's why I posted it.
Yeah, well, and especially I was thinking about, as you're saying, like we're in the modern age, our bloopers are even curated, right? Like we put them in the credits of movies, but everybody still looks good, and it's always something funny and palatable to watch, as opposed to like, yeah, I just had a slip of the tongue and it wasn't enjoyable or watchable. It was just me making a mistake. But I want to ask you, Karen, because I know you interview people, you do a ton of this. You meet with people. Would you rather meet with somebody who's going to show up and be their real self, or would you rather meet with somebody who is slick, who's going to hit every consonant perfectly? They've got their message. It's like on a script where you can just ask a question and they're going to go. What's your preference there?
Oh, it's authenticity. I mean, I'll be honest, audience. When I speak to people before we book these, one of the things I say, I want you to be authentic. I want you to be raw. I want you to be real. If you swear, go ahead and fucking swear. I don't give a shit.
Right.
Because
remember.
I'm not going, because you were like, oh, can I use crass language? I'm like, yes, you can.
Yeah.
Because I want you to see the real people behind this, not curated image, because that curated image is what has given us these boundaries.
Right.
We see models looking a certain way, and that affects all the young girls going, I need to look that way. We see public speakers speaking a certain way, and we go, well, we have to speak that way if we speak. We see tech, giants doing these huge things and go, well, if I'm not doing these huge things, I'm not successful.
Doesn't that blow your mind?
These are all boundaries.
Yeah.
These are boundaries. And this is, maybe you can answer this one. I am a firm believer there's two types of boundaries in this world.
Okay.
Okay. One, the boundaries that we place ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And two, the boundaries that are placed on us by others.
Oh, okay. Tell me more.
So, and that's kind of like the girls looking at models and going, I need to look like that. Well, that's a boundary in a way that's been put, that this is the acceptable. This is where it needs to be. Oh, you've got a job here. That means you must do this. These are boundaries that are placed on us by other people. And, sometimes they're reasonable.
Right.
Like in school, your boundary that a school might put on you is, if you get this score, you will get this grade. That is a type of boundary.
Right.
Because if you score under, you can't just say, oh, please, 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 just raise it 5 points and give me the other one. That's still a boundary that's been placed on you, and that's not a bad boundary. But you can also get these boundaries like that, oh, if you're not doing everything the CEO says, you're going to lose your job.
Right, right. Speaking of those kind of boundary situations, I have a family member who I won't name here, who took a class in high school and was failing virtually the whole time. It was a terrible nightmare, but they needed it to graduate high school. And so the week of the final exam, they studied, and they needed something like a 98 to get a passing D in the class. And so they studied, and they worked super hard, and they got a 97. And they went to the teacher and said, I worked so hard on this. I got 1 point away from what I needed to get to pass. Can you please give me that extra point so I can pass? And the teacher said, you were failing all semester. You did no work here until last week. Why would I give you a point? Which is, I gotta say, that's tough. That's a tough conversation of somebody with boundaries. But on the other hand, I respect it that they were able to say, like, no, my reasoning stands for this thing. But the other piece I want to say as you're saying this is that all boundaries, all good boundaries, all reasonable boundaries stand up to scrutiny. And I think that's one of the things. If you ever find yourself in a situation where either you're setting boundaries with somebody else or they're setting boundaries with you, and they are not something that is allowed to be examined, that doesn't mean you can question it. That doesn't mean you can say, well, why not? Well, why not? Well, why not? 1,000 times. But if they're beyond reproach under somebody's set of standards, then that's probably not a very good boundary to begin with.
Yeah, I totally understand that. And that being under scrutiny is a great thing. And what we have to do is bear that in mind and be able to look at it. Can we question it? What are some good questions that you would say we can give people to be able to scrutinize those boundaries?
I want to be able to respect your boundary, but I don't yet understand it. Can you help me understand it? Can you tell me why this is this way? Because that starts with, I'm not looking to argue with you. I'm not looking to take it away from you. I actually want to understand it. And I'm coming from a place of trying to default to respecting what you have here. I think that's a terrific question to ask. And also the ability to take no for an answer is really important.
Perfect. So I asked you to come up with one tool for our audience today, and I think you've given us several.
You're generous.
But this is like just a free-flowing tool session today. So please, if you learn something, I want you to put in the comments. I want you to tell us what tool you're going to do. I want you to tell us how you're going to impact this on your life. And Nick, you just gave us so much goodness. If someone wants to reach out to you, find you, learn more about you, learn more about what you offer, whether for your professional services or for your teaching services, how would they do that?
So you can start at nickbognartherapy.com, which is where my therapy website is hosted. And that's the work I do with clients all over California. If they're interested in developing either their therapy practice or just the relationship / networking based part of their professional life, they can go to nickbognarcoaching.com and see my offerings there. And I would be happy to hear from anybody who has listened to this, just even on I heard this kind of a basis.
Well, we're definitely putting that in the show notes. This has been an absolute pleasure, Nick. We had so much goodness today. It was phenomenal.
That makes me feel so good. I enjoyed talking to you.
I think it was fun. And like I said, audience, it doesn't matter where you hear this, if you hear it on the podcast or you hear it on one of the social medias, please just drop in the comment, because the more we know that you're learning from this, the more tools that we see that you're getting, it helps me find people to give you the tools that you want to need. Because this podcast is all about putting those tools in your toolbox, because you're perfect the way you are. You're beautiful. You're amazing. I think you're an awesome individual. And introverts have an important role in this world. And I want you to do it to the best of your ability, not the best of someone else's ability. Thank you so much, Nick. It's been wonderful. Thank you.
A total pleasure. Thank you, Karen.
Okay. And to everyone else, ta-ra for now. We'll talk on the next podcast.